I see it.
All right. We are on, baby.
We're on the YouTube.
Pot hey. On the YouTube. Welcome to New Consciousness Now, folks. I am Gail Wolf. My good friend here, Dr. Jay Eaker.
Hey, folks.
And respectively, I'm currently living in Hanover, Illinois. And I am I'm an intuitive. I'm a channel. I help people with meditation, and currently developing a new technique that I call intuitive reprogramming, where you combine using your intuition and your life intentions for reprogramming your subconscious mind, which is very exciting. And you can find me on Facebook at Catalyst Rising, and at my upcoming website, which is gailwolf.rocks. It's GALEWULFF.rocks. And that's me.
That's the Gail. The Wolf Man. I'm Jay Eaker.
Ow.
Dr. Jay Eaker. From the BioSoul Integration Center in Louisville, Colorado. That's where my office is. My physical office space, where I support people to embody their soul's gifts and their soul's essence so they can share those gifts on the planet. Do work there, and also do some online work with people, and working on an online course. I got a book that's I've been working on for the last 3 years that's in the editing process right now. So there'll be some online stuff coming out in the future, but I can be found at www.biosoulintegration.com. And also, of course, I'd be remiss to not mention that I am, of course, on Facebook, the ubiquitous Facebook, and Twitter. Do some tweeting, and Instagram, and what else? LinkedIn sometimes. So, and I also have a BioSoul Integration podcast that can be found wherever you find your podcasts. So you should be able to find BioSoul Integration just about anywhere on the interwebs.
I have to say, you got to check out the BioSoul Integration podcast. He puts these clips on Instagram and so forth, and they are wise, full of very viable and pragmatic information, and there's some humor in there as well. So check it out, folks. It's pretty awesome.
Thanks, Gail. Appreciate that.
So, oh yeah, I'm a little biased because I love you.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
So
we need to pat each other on the back.
Virtual hug over Zoom. Yeah, right. But don't give me COVID. Don't get too close, man.
Right. Well, if it's a quantum disease like you were talking about one time, I suppose that's possible to get it through Zoom.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But that's a whole other topic.
That's a whole other topic, the quantumness of disease, and it really does away with germ theory and all that stuff that our modern medicine currently spends billions of dollars on every year to push. But that's not today's topic.
What is today's topic? Let's see. This is episode number 21.
Today's topic, 21. 21.
Nice. It's in Espanol. Anger is as medicine. Let your anger be your medicine. It's about anger. That we're talking about. And
this is a juicy topic.
And how anger can sort of be fuel for your healing.
Yes.
Yeah, and then
really is.
We're going to talk about that, and then probably after a half an hour or so here, or whenever, you're going to tap into the interwebs and do some channeling.
Interwebs. Indeed. Gonna check in on a whole nother level. Check in from a new level of consciousness
Hmm.
and see what they've got to say about what's going on.
Right.
But yeah, exciting
Which is
stuff.
always interesting to see what they have to say.
Yes, it is.
Mhm.
And
So,
man, anger.
yeah. What about this anger thing?
Hot topic. Hot topic. Pun
Yeah.
fully intended.
Yes, literally.
Okay. Right. Oh man. It's interesting is, you know, I'm sure you've seen this plenty of times, Jay, because you work with many people, and I've worked with a lot of people over the years as well. And you know, a lot of people I've noticed, they come in and they've got certain things going on in their life that they don't particularly care about, whether it be their health, their finances, relationship, or whatever it might be.
Hmm.
And every time I hear a person say, "Well, I'm just going to focus on the love," like, well, you're going to fail, because if that's what you're going to do and just focus on the love, you're not going to create what you want
Love
to
and
do. Because
light.
what
Love
you
and
really need to
light.
do, love and light, baby, is you got to get pissed off. Like,
Mm,
you really got to get pissed off about where you're at some point. There's the whole thing about accepting where you're at. There's the whole thing about forgiveness, and
mm-hmm.
and these are all things that do develop over the course of time. But one of the elements that so many people don't look at is
Mm-hmm.
right where they're at in the present moment.
Right.
And people try to reach outside of their present experience
Right.
to
Yeah.
embrace something that is not there right now.
We
And
often
that is the very wrong thing to do.
Right. We often have like especially in the spiritual healing world or whatever, kind of an aversion to things like that, right? Like maybe anger means you're not spiritual, or
Yeah.
anger is destructive, or
Yeah.
anger is it gets a bad rap.
It gets a bad rap big time. And what's interesting is anger has got a tremendous amount of fuel in it, a
Mm-hmm.
tremendous amount
Mm,
of incentive, a
mm,
tremendous amount of get up and go to it.
mm,
It's like
mm-hmm,
anger is what gives you that drive to push forward and do what you normally wouldn't do, like
mm,
have the conversation with somebody that's either been irritating you or taking advantage of you, or
mm,
who you've been giving
mm,
your power to for however
mm,
long. And anger is what gives you that fuel and that
mm,
drive to step over that hurdle
mm,
and do what you normally wouldn't do, or possibly go out and go for the job interview that you haven't done either. Like, I'm mad that I don't have the money,
mm,
and I haven't had the
right.
balls to go after the job I
Mm,
really want that would pay me the money. But
mm,
because I'm so desperate and I'm pissed off about it, well, I'm going to go in and do it anyway and see how it
right.
goes. And all of a sudden you get the job.
But sounds like you're talking about making change, the oomph to sort of like make change or to draw boundaries.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah. And that's one type, or one way anger
Mm,
helps.
mm-hmm.
I mean, I believe there are countless ways that it can help. Um, you know, I guess another way as well is, so many of us, we do want to live more in a space of love, and do want to live in a space more of feeling our light and being more connected to ourselves. And just to touch upon briefly what we were discussing before we started the recording here, is that you know in our beings, as we go through life, we have different emotional things that happen, where we go through a breakup, or a loss of a job, or someone passes away or moves on, and life gives us these challenges in it. Or we get abused in some sort of
Mm-hmm.
fashion, either mentally, physically, emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
um, and it creates like these compartments, or sections, or parts of ourselves inside, where we're not totally consolidated and together. We've got
Mm-hmm.
parts of us that are happy, other parts
Mm-hmm.
of us that are angry, other parts that are sad, some that are
Mm-hmm.
empowered, others that are disempowered, so on and so forth. And when you have all these different feelings inside, they don't necessarily come together and collaborate or communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're really going to be all one, first we have to become one within ourselves by
Ourselves.
bringing all these parts and pieces together. You
Right.
know, if how can we consolidate as a human race and really, really, really get each other and really, really get along
Mm,
if we cannot be getting along inside of ourselves and if
mm,
we're fighting with
mm-hmm,
ourselves?
mm-hmm.
It simply won't happen.
Got to be the
And
change you want to
so,
see in the world,
you know, one of the you have to be the change you want to see in the world. And
as they
so,
say.
you know, when we're when we're working on ourselves and we've got all these parts and pieces, anger is a great catalyst for bringing these pieces together.
Mm-hmm,
So often when we're angry, it's from the friction of these different parts and pieces of
mm-hmm,
ourselves that
mm-hmm,
aren't getting along.
mm-hmm,
They're not cohesive inside of ourselves, but they
mm-hmm.
want to be. And
Right.
so there's anger in there because they want to come together.
Right.
And so by feeling that anger and really, really, really going into it and just raging your ass
Uh-huh.
off if you've got to sometime is sometimes the greatest thing you could do for yourself is to
Mm-hmm.
really feel it fully and let
Mm-hmm.
it just consume you.
Yeah.
Just get burned up in the fire.
Yeah.
Just let the rage consume you.
Mm.
And
Yeah. Trust it
and it
actually.
so often trust it.
But
Trust it
I
because
would
it's your body telling you
right.
something.
That's your energy too. Like when we I don't mean
It
to cut
is.
you off, but when we I
No,
would
it's
say
yeah.
when you say feel it, often it's like it's squirting into our heads and we're thinking thoughts about like what I should have done or what I could have done or how if I wouldn't be so pissed off if that person had done this or if this situation wasn't like this. But whenever we sort of spin out in our heads like that, we're sort of wasting that energy. If you give yourself permission to feel it, I mean, yeah, raging out is can be good if you can give yourself permission to actually embody that, to feel the rage. I would just add that,
That's it.
right?
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree. And the other piece with this as well is you know, people always think of anger as being destructive.
Mm-hmm.
It is not. Anger is one of the most
Mm,
constructive energies that are out
mm,
there. It
in a way,
depends
yeah.
on how you
Mm-hmm.
choose to channel it.
Mm-hmm.
What we see in our world, for example, right now today, you know, as we sit here in fall of 2020, you know, we're coming up on an election. There are riots happening all over the place. People are freaking out over
Mm-hmm.
COVID.
Mm,
um, there's
mm-hmm.
racism is really up right now. Sexism is really
Mm-hmm.
up. Child trafficking is really up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like all of these hot topics are just
Mm-hmm.
they're everywhere, and people are really, really angry and up in
Mm-hmm.
arms about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're seeing, especially with the riots, for example, is anger being expressed in a very destructive way.
Mm-hmm.
But there are constructive ways for it to be too. And it is like if you take your anger and you channel it into an exercise, into
Mm-hmm.
exercising, or let's say you jump in your car or you're alone in your house or something
Mm,
and you just scream your head
mm,
off and just scream,
mm-hmm.
scream, scream. And you and there's something else you can do too that you can literally if you like, for example, feel the anger and feel the rage and literally surrender to it and let it really
Mm-hmm.
come through,
Mm-hmm.
what you find beneath the anger, if you can find the capacity to relax into it,
Mm,
is its fear that's below it.
mm. Or grief usually,
There's fear.
I find too.
Yeah, then the grief comes out.
I was
It's
gonna say
yeah.
you were given examples there of what to do. I find that it has a lot to do with this as people are because the work that I do is about, our spines a lot. And so as people are sort of moving bound up energy that's bound up in this place here, often there's
Mm,
some form of heat that comes to the surface, whether it's heat in the body or hot flashes or inflammation or it's often anger. But if the people are in the part of the process where they just need to sort of get in touch with some rage that's there, and there's been some rage that's been repressed, I find that it's often useful. And my experience, personal experience, anger has certainly been a good a companion of mine. for a while, but at different times. But is to actually, like, if you have a good thick mattress, to just like pat a Hulk, like Hulk smash. Hulk, he's always
Yes.
pissed off, but just pound on the mattress. I find it helps to move the energy that's trying to move in the upper spine there. And that's not a strategy that will work forever, but at certain points in the process, when people are just starting to connect with it, especially if it's like rage,
Yes. Yeah.
that's something I
And
would
by the way,
anyway.
when Jay was referring to the body, he was taking his hands, and for those of you who are just hearing the podcast, he's referring to the upper spine, like the cervical area behind your neck, behind your
Yeah.
head, through your upper shoulders, up through that area.
Mhm.
Like so much anger and rage, a lot of times will
Mhm.
hover right in there, and so often you can see it in people because their
Mm.
shoulders are slunched forward, or
Right.
they kind of hover almost. Their chin is exaggerated in front of their bodies,
Mhm.
and um, you can see it in a person's posture and in their
Yeah.
spine.
That's where, I mean, a
Uh,
lot of the upper lungs, they say, store a lot of grief, and in my experience, often there's grief underneath the anger. Yeah,
yeah,
that part of the spine,
yeah,
know,
and
I always, it has to do with the part of us that knows kind of what feels true and right, and gives us the capacity. If we're connected with that part of ourselves, we can express what feels true and right, and we can say yes when we mean yes, and no when we mean no, and draw healthy boundaries. And um, but often we learn early on that that's not okay, to that part of ourselves is not valid. We learn early on in our lives, and so we stick energy back there, and like you said, you can see it in people's
mhm,
posture.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The thing, and Jay's right. There's sometimes it really helps to just have something to pound on with your fists or your hands, or
Mm-hmm.
go out and chop some wood.
Mm,
That's a great exercise to do if you're angry. Just go chop
right.
some wood, man.
Yeah.
If you've got access to that kind of thing,
Don't hurt
chop some
yourself though.
wood. It's Don't hurt yourself with the
Make
axe.
sure you set it
But
up on
that's one
all
of the
levels so
best.
you're safe. Don't be pounding on
Yeah,
some
don't
hard
be
objects,
don't be
or
an idiot.
don't get yourself with the axe.
The other the other piece with anger too, and
Mm,
this is another area where anger gets a bad rap, is
mm,
anger's not comfortable. It
mm,
is not a
right.
comfortable feeling. And here's one of the reasons
Right.
why, and it really points to a level of consciousness that
So
we're
uncomfortable.
at, is that we have been repressed in ourselves, in our societies, in our families, for quite a long time.
Mm,
And um, what happens with repression for most people is that they end up feeling disempowered. When you
mm,
want to do something and you do not feel you have the means or have the permission or the ability to go do it, that
mm,
desire doesn't change. It becomes more
mm,
intense.
mm,
And so when it gets repressed, that turns
mm.
into anger.
So like repressed
And
passion.
there are levels of repressed passion. Exactly.
Hmm.
That's exactly it. Repressed passion.
Mm,
And so what another element of anger is oftentimes anger is those depressed or repressed areas of our being looking for attention and looking for expression.
mhm,
And so oftentimes the anger is 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 really bringing energy and bringing our awareness into those areas, and so that they can be liberated, so
mhm,
that they can be set free. It's
mhm,
like anger is the impetus and the energy of re-empowerment.
mm,
And the
mhm,
reason it's
mm.
so
Right.
uncomfortable in our bodies is when we have, for
Hmm.
example, let's say that somebody had the desire to be an artist, and their parents were a doctor and an engineer or something of that nature,
Hmm.
and this person wants to go to art school instead of medical school, and the parents are like, no, you must go to med school,
Right.
and the person's like, ugh, ugh. and they go to med school, they become a doctor, and there's this rage that's inside they
Mm,
can't quite get to. And there's a level of disempowerment that's in there. And so every time that disempowerment speaks, it's like they're feeling all the energy that's there that they weren't allowing themselves to feel before. And
mhm,
when that anger comes up,
mhm,
it is really the re-empowerment
mhm,
of the areas of our being that have been disempowered. And when we have a
mhm,
disempowered area of our body that we haven't brought any energy to in a long time,
mhm,
it's uncomfortable.
mhm,
But it really is an element of our waking process
mhm.
where we become more whole,
Right.
because that fire and that anger is really what is giving life to that part and that aspect of our being again. And
Mhm,
when we express it, we have more energetic resource available to us. In other words,
mhm.
we have more energy to carry us through our day for us to achieve our goals and live our dreams than we would have
Mhm.
otherwise.
Yeah. Gives us the oomph.
Anger is just
We
beautiful.
we adopted a way of being from, early on, something that didn't sort of jive with our authentic selves. And so, yeah, there's a way in which we're conflicted and sort of like pushing against that all the time. And actually feeling the anger kind of gives us the oomph to sort of like, like to stand up for our authentic selves, to stand up for what really feels
Yeah,
right. Yep.
indeed.
hmm
Indeed.
yeah, like I like how you're it's just really I feel like a deep sort of teaching this idea that it actually like brings things together with my clients. Uh like I always similarly I noticed that there's ways that we fragment ourselves, and it's kind of like in my experience, it's sort of like we got these two bubbles. Part of the healing process is like we get become aware of the that how we see the world through the lens of, in certain situations and circumstances, we see the world through the lens of this part, and then maybe it's love and light or whatever, and in certain situations we see the world through the lens of this part. There are parts of us that are happy and parts that are sad, like you said, and parts that want to move forward and parts that want to drag their feet, and there's love and light parts, and there's actually parts of us that are pissed off or dark or whatever. But part of the healing process is those parts coming into awareness, and then when we do start to come into awareness, they're like two bubbles and they start to rub up against each other, and that surface tension creates this. We become aware of how we are, how we're conflicted inside of ourselves, and we're stuck inside of ourselves, and so the surface tension, you know, they start to rub against each other and we feel stuck, and frustration and anger is an important part of that. And it's actually again, in the Western world, we sort of feel like, oh, I have to obliterate this stuckness, or I have to take massive action and obliterate this. But the solution is actually to go into the frustration and the stuckness. That's like and the anger, if you will. It's just a politically correct word, I guess. Frustration is kind of a politically correct way to say pissed off. But uh, you have to, that's a portal. And if you give yourself permission to go into that portal and feel it, just how friggin' stuck you feel and just how frustrating it is, and the anger involved with that, it takes us to a place where we can see both of those parts from a new perspective. We move to a new perspective and start to be able to reclaim our power, and start to be able to see then consequently things that we couldn't see before. And life can give us things that we really weren't ready to receive. Uh, yeah, so anger gets a bad rap, but it's
Yes, it does.
such an opportunity.
It,
Uh, I want to,
Jay,
can
and
I, go
I,
ahead, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
gonna
Yeah.
say, I want to say, just just practical things, to do. Like when anger is probably gonna come up often, like in relationship. Your partner's gonna say that thing that's just gonna like set you off, or a situation in life. But it's rarely really about that situation. And so, my suggestion would be to it's an opportunity to stop and pay and notice, like, oh, I'm pissed off, I'm angry, and as opposed to sort of like getting engaged with someone mentally or getting engaged mentally with the situation, like again, just stop and like, oh, I'm angry, and just give yourself permission to feel that anger. We sort of, don't understand, have a tendency to not understand that, oh, if I'm angry, like I need to do something about it. I can figure this out or whatever. But if we just give ourselves permission to feel the energy in our bodies, actually we're integrating it. Our heart is opening to that part of ourselves, and it's getting integrated. And then solutions will sort of like trickle to the surface kind of magically, once we've sort of integrated that. If we keep rolling around in our heads, actually, in my experience, it's sort of designed, actually, there's energy we won't feel in our bodies. It squirts into our heads because that mental pathway is just so ingrained in adult humans, but that may we think more thoughts about why I'm angry and what to be angry about and how, and just creates more of the sensation in your body, and which you won't feel, which creates more of the thoughts, and it's, I think it's just designed for it to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until
Yeah,
you have to
bounces
actually
back and
stop, and
forth.
feel it. Um,
Hmm.
and So you can kind of cut to the chase by just noticing
Which
when you're
is
angry
whi-
and just give yourself permission to feel it.
which is interesting because what you're talking about, Jay, and you talk about bouncing back and forth.
Mm,
There's a delineation between our thoughts and our bodies and our
mm,
feelings, and anybody that is really in touch with themselves on any level will resonate with what I'm about to say. Is that our thoughts are electrical impulses, and our emotions and our bodies operate primarily on magnetic uh, frequencies or
mm,
polarities. And so, what's interesting is the mental impulses, the electrical impulses of the brain are much quicker firing and nimble sort of an
mm,
energy, whereas the magnetic poles of our emotions
mm,
aren't so quick moving. They need to be connected with and matched in polarity before they can adjust and shift. And so, in other words, if you're really going to shift your energy and shift your anger or shift how you feel in your body or shift your emotions, there has to be a capacity within the mind to know that, and as well and an intention to deliberately connect to that area of the body. But then in the last second, the mind has to shift off and allow the polarities to shift on their own. And so this is where and if you really want to get esoteric about it, this is where a person with a meditative practice can develop certain strategies within their body in order to enhance that process. But then at the very end, you have to surrender and go into a tantra practice where you surrender to what the body innately knows what to do. And and this is, I'm going to pat Jay on the back here for a second. This is where the technique that Jay does really excels and shines, because the energetic technique that he works with people, it helps to really make that process seamless, to where the electrical impulses of the brain and the mind work with the magnetic poles of the body and allow them to come into more of a collaborative sort of reality or existence, which in pragmatic terms leads to a more peaceful inner state that has a greater level of efficiency in terms of healing.
mm,
Your body and your being literally heals itself
mm,
because of the collaborative efforts or
mm,
collaboration that goes on
mm,
between
mm.
the brain and the body.
Right. Yeah, that energy is
Yeah.
nothing to clear or get rid of. Actually, all the
No.
information, that you need to heal is sort of like heal, meaning become more whole, is contained in that energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that you made me think
I
of
want
was
to.
like how,
Oh, go ahead.
uh, just again, there's just energy that we've separated ourselves from this part of our this part of our spine, our lower neck, upper spine there, and energy that builds up. So we've separated our heart from our head, and we've separated our feeling body from our head, So again, there's a way in which they're kind of not on the same page. But giving ourselves permission to feel the anger will sort of like integrate our thoughts with our
Yes.
emotions.
And there's something else you said, Jay, a couple of comments ago that really caught my ear, and I'd really like to just comment on it. Is that anger helps us to receive. Anger helps us to receive what's ours, or what's intended for us, or what have you. If you look at what the repression of power is, because the most angry, and studies have proved this over and over and over, the most rageful societies and the most rageful events happen from the most repressed people. We as humans are not meant to be repressed or held back. We are innately wired for freedom and expression of our authentic selves. That is how we are intended to exist on this planet. And so when you have a tremendous amount of repression, or a tremendous amount of holding back or control, anger is heightened so intensely, because the story in that scenario is, I cannot be, or I cannot have that which I desire to be or to have. So there's that repression. And so when the anger is faced, and when the anger is felt and truly, truly, truly embodied and experienced authentically, cleanly, and clearly, it really opens the door to receive what's ours, because it eliminates the story of, I don't deserve this, or I don't deserve that. It opens the door to, I'm worthy of it, I deserve it, I can have it. And what's interesting is, as soon as you create an intention, the universe conspires to give it to you. And it really allows that process to happen. The very last stage, the very last step in any manifestation is to receive it. And interestingly enough, that is the one step that 90% of people mess up on. Is we're so adept and in tune with driving, striving, pushing, and trying to achieve, that so few of us have gotten adept at kicking back, showing the appreciation to receive what's here for us. And this is one way where anger helps to open that door.
Yeah. If you have felt like you did not, if you have invalidated yourself most of your life, it's going to require some anger to sort of reclaim your worthiness and reclaim your deservedness. And until you do that, you can't receive.
Indeed.
Yep.
Indeed. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yep. Well, what do you think?
Well, we're at that time, I suppose. I'll
hook up the internet.
Take a moment.
The internet.
There's a man. When's the last time you heard a dial-up internet?
I don't know, college.
Yeah, gosh, boy, it's been a while.
Yeah,
it's going through the whole phone system thing. So, all right.
You're ready to
How's
do
my
it?
sound? They're moving some parts. Yeah.
I can hear it. Sounds.
I was gonna ask, can you hear the?
I heard a little beeping. It's faint.
Can you hear the large? Okay.
What?
All right. I live across from a cornfield.
Oh.
And I think they're picking corn out there.
It's faint.
You can hear tractors and combine.
Yeah, I can hear something going on. It's faint.
Some grumbling in the back. All right, good. As long as you can still hear me over the sound of the diesel engines, I guess we'll be doing all right.
Hmm.
Jay and I are both from farms, so it strikes a little particular chord for us each year. So, all right, I'm gonna shift my awareness here, and we'll see what comes forward. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I am the divine masculine presence upon planet Earth at this time. I'm here to talk about and expound upon your topic of conversation today as it pertains deeply to a very masculine principle. In your dialogue, you spoke about repression and flow, receiving intentions. And if you consider for a moment the experience that every one of you on this planet is having in every second of every day, literally every second of every day, you live your life based upon your intentions. Every second, you have an intention, and your intention creates your reality. Consider for a moment the word intention. You think of it only as something that you think about that relates to a desire that you have and you wish to manifest that desire. And if you break the word down on a deeper level, you have the word in and you have the word tension. If you think about that in another way, you can say that you bring tension into your awareness. Tension is always a pressure or a result of something that is being enacted in a restrictive environment. In your case, you are living in a reality that is inherently created out of restriction. On the deepest levels of that which I speak, you are all God. You are all living in God. You are all living inside of a godness, a God matrix. God simply is. There is nothing that is not in God. And so, therefore, in order to have your reality, you must have not Godness, or rather, a certain level of notness. In that, you have two poles, that which is, that which is not. And everything that you experience in your reality is between those two poles. And so, when you have a tension and you bring it into yourself, and you have done this with a clear picture of that which you want to create, you create tension in your body. When you have less tension in your body, it is easier to intend. When you have more tension in your body, it is harder to intend. Does it not make sense to you that with less tension, tension becomes easier? And with more tension, tension becomes harder? And so, if you consider for a moment, when you have a desire that comes across your reality, understand that that desire is always, in all ways, pulling you into and towards a better, more flowing expression of yourself. Some of you call this advancing in your consciousness. Some of you call this tapping into your higher self and moving from that place. Regardless of how you label this experience, every desire and every intention pulls you, as it is designed to do, in the direction of experiencing more Godness, more flow, more ease. And I speak to you today as the divine masculine because I am the progenitor of intentions. It is the masculine principle in its divine nature, which is to bring awareness to direction. I bring direction to you. When you embrace divine direction, it is a masculine directive. It is the feminine that creates either restriction or flow. If the feminine is not divine, there is more restriction. If the feminine is more divine, there is less restriction. You have more flow, you have more ease, and it is always the feminine that determines how fast this moves. Also, in regards to all of this, the intentions in a less masculine or a less divine masculine intention or desire may not pull you in as direct of a line or direction to God as a more divine masculine intention. Therefore, the more divine the masculine energy, the more direct line is intended to be taken for the individual. The less divine masculine takes a more indirect approach towards God for the individual. And this is what creates the dance between the masculine and the feminine. The more divinity that exists between a masculine and feminine pole, the much more efficiently that dance takes those experiencing it to God. The less divine the two embarking upon that dance are, the more time and more challenge that exists between them in order to experience a godly reality. I speak these things now because of the topic of the dialogue for the day. That fire and heat so often lead the way towards godliness, towards God. When you have more heat, it can take you closer to God. It can also take you farther away. The difference between the two is, once again, if there is more divinity, the heat propels you forward much, much, much faster. If there is resistance, if there is avoidance, if there is a reluctance to embrace the fire, then the fire will burn you, and you find yourself being farther away from God, and thus farther away from the experience you wish to have. The equation is quite simple. It is the stories that you all embrace which makes this challenging and somewhat confusing. To keep this simple, to keep this straightforward, simply embrace all that you are in all the ways that you know how, in order to create the reality where the anger and the friction in your life propel you forward. Judge not your experience of you being you, and trust the intentions that you have. As you learn to trust, you bring in more energy worth trusting. To break that down, if you can trust the masculine, you will bring in more trustworthy intention, more trustworthy desires. If you can trust the feminine, you manifest and bring in more flow and help the feminine to relax into receiving the intentions that are there. And this again moves you forward in a more efficient way. During this time, you are seeing in your realities, the realities in your society, the realities in your relating, and the realities within your respective beings. You are all feeling some heat of one kind or another. The question remains to each of you: will you allow that heat to pull you more towards your God selves, Or will you ignore it and allow it to burn you? The choice is yours. And all it takes in order to be sure that you move in the direction that you want to go is to first intend to go in that way, and then trust the desires that you find within yourself and know that they are taking you in that direction. Leave the rest to God and simply experience what comes up for you and know that all is well. Are there any questions about this?
You were kind of making this distinction about, more divine intention. I guess I'm assuming the goal would be to, have a more divine intention more of the time. And am I right in sort of, sounds like you were saying the way to do that is to embrace all of our parts, trust and embrace what's happening, embrace anger, for instance. Does that sound true?
Indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed. The best way to have intentions and desires that will take you the most efficiently towards your objective is to trust your experience of yourself. Trusting your experience of yourself always leads to an ability to trust your world. Trust and the ability to do it is what determines the quality of the intentions that you experience and the desires that you concoct. Trust is the paramount key that leads to quality. Is there another question that you have?
No, I would say that feels complete. If there's anything that you have to say in closing briefly, that would be great.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and connect with you. I arrive to you today in the form of the Divine Masculine as an encouragement to those who have lost faith in the masculine. In your world today, there is very little trust in the masculine. And this is slowly becoming restored with great grace. Endure this time, endure your experiences, and know that the sun is rising again. Think about that. Be well. Well, that was cryptic.
What do you think?
The sun is rising again. Well, just that last line
Oh yeah, what was that last line?
said, something about trust that the sun is rising again,
Wow.
and
Mm,
it was there was my sense is there was a reference to Jesus
uh-huh.
in that, and the other part with the sun in shamanic traditions, the sun is representative of the masculine principle or the masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow.
I guess they were kind of saying, I don't know, was it the same person or group or whatever last time? Or was it different? Because they were saying that the masculine is sort of the divine masculine is coming back or something too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last time it was the future consciousness of humanity.
Right.
Last week.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh, wow.
Hmm. How did that feel
Very interesting.
in your body? How'd that feel? What was the experience of that for you?
That was it like that was like it was like I just feel it was warm.
Mm.
It was really warm and really just really peaceful and steady.
Mm.
Just I mean just steady,
Mm.
totally unwavering, just
Mm-hmm.
poof.
Mm.
And like the presence, like I could tell if I like it was just there's so much presence, and just the level of patience and calm. It was tremendous. It was tremendous.
Mm. Cool. That
That was quite phenomenal.
sounds like masculine traits.
Oh yeah, boy, it was. I mean, like the very essence of it, there was no wavering.
Mm-hmm.
There was just like no, it was woof,
Mm.
no wavering, and it wasn't like it it was like a quiet, patient sort of power, just infinitely powerful, infinitely patient, no judgment, just so present, just yeah,
I mean,
I could hang out there.
it didn't seem,
I could
it didn't
hang.
seem like there were, many sort of like up and down. It wasn't sort of up and down emotionally. It seemed not unemotional, but not, you know, not very dynamic as far as emotion goes. Felt very, like you said, just
Yeah, it was so steady, so steady, and the love. Oh,
so there was love. Okay.
just warm.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
yeah. The love, like
Mm.
that. To me, the heat or the warmth that I felt in my body
Mm.
it was just warm,
Mm.
warm love.
Mm.
That's how it felt to me.
Mm. I didn't. It's good to hear.
Yeah, that was
I
special.
didn't gather that from listening to you.
Hmm.
That's cool. All right.
Yeah.
Well, anything else to
Well,
mention about
sweet
that?
man. Um, no, not really. Not that I
No.
can think of. Uh, That's about it, I guess.
Embrace your all your parts. Don't judge your parts. Trust what comes up. Don't judge yourself,
Yeah.
especially where anger is
Don't
concerned.
judge.
I guess
Yep.
embrace your anger.
Big stuff.
Which I would say again, it
So,
doesn't mean be angry in your head. Feel it in your body. That's what I would say.
yep. Feel the fire.
Let it burn.
Feel the fire. It won't burn you.
Feel the burn.
It'll move you into where you want to be. It's
Feel the
only
burn.
uncomfortable for a short while.
Yeah.
Feel the burn. Sweet.
All right, Gail.
Well, this was
Episode
21 of New Consciousness Now.
Mm-hmm.
Let your anger be your medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I am Gail Wolf, and I am an intuitive and meditation guide, and among other things, located in Hanover, Illinois. And it can be found at gailwolf.rocks and at Catalyst Rising on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn when I feel like it. And next time we'll be talking about letting your trust carry you through challenge.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And I'm Jay Eaker, and I can be found at biosoulintegration.com and everywhere else, all other social media platforms and podcast sites and whatnot for your all your bio soul integration needs.
Ooh. Yes.
Boom.
Yes. Boom. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you got some good little nuggets out of this. And we'll see you next time.
Adios.
Take care.